Welcome to all of you, and a special welcome to all the people at home following the live stream. As I said, we are the lucky ones this afternoon, and the reason is that we are able to listen to a number of talented people. They're sitting in front here in the first row. We have Ilvi Njokoktian, who made a beautiful piece, Afrikaner Blood, together with Alice van Gelder. Chris de Bode, the famous photographer, who made a nice piece on refugees in Libya. And we have Jeroen Torkens, who has just made a fantastic project on nomadic people. And of course, we have a main guest, Peter Rudge from Duckrabbit blog, excuse me. And he will, in about 40 minutes, will give a lecture about how his company works, and also share something with you about how multimedia is developing at the moment. First, we have the three nominees for the Canon Prize. They will give a short introduction of their project, then we're going to look at it. And afterwards, we have Ronald Okhuizen, who is not only Assistant Editor-in-Chief of Het Parool, but also the Chairman of the jury of the Canon Prize. He will give his comments and say a little bit about how the jury discussion went. And Peter Rudge would also comment short on the productions the three nominees made. That was that. Let's start with Chris de Bode. Should be on.
Hello, hello. Yeah. Was it amplified? No. Can you talk louder to people at home? Sound?
Nu.
Yeah. Hello.
Hello. Hello. Hi. Hello. Good afternoon, also the people at home. Good afternoon. I'll give you, well, my name is Chris de Bode. I'll give you a short introduction on the piece I did. I was on assignment on the border of Tunisia and Libya during in fact, the start of the war in Libya. And one day I went there, I went to the border. There were lots of people camping out there, and there was a lot of media as well. So I arrived, got out of the car, lots of camera crews and photographers, and a massive line of people walking down a road, coming from the border where they were camping and going somewhere. And everybody was making pictures, and I thought, like, what the hell am I doing here? What can I add to all these media people here? What can I do differently? So I saw an army truck, and on this army truck were two photographers. And I thought, like, okay, let's climb on the army truck and see things from their perspective. And the moment I climbed on the truck, one photographer looked down at me and told me, like, what the fuck are you doing here? This is my truck. And then I thought, like, okay, let's get the hell out of here, because I don't like it. What can I add? What to do? So I walked down the road and was angry, was like pissed off, like what, you know. And then I stood there like a bit higher on a small bank by the side of the road, and I started to make a picture. I started to make a picture of all these people passing by. And I made another picture, and another picture, and another picture, and another picture. And I thought, like, hey, this could be a really nice movie. If I go to my hotel later this night, I can make, on YouTube something very simple. And so I stood there for a while. I don't know for how long, maybe an hour or so, maybe a bit longer, maybe a bit shorter. And I recorded sound. I recorded sound of the trolleys people were carrying, and the voices, and the cars, and everything. And so I came back to my hotel, and we were having a drink, and another drink, And the idea of the movie disappeared. Also because I thought, if I make this movie, who is going to see it? How am I going to distribute the movie? Who will see tomorrow that this happened today? And so at that point, I decided to make a collage of pictures. And I thought, if I send this to a newspaper, maybe they might want to publish it. And I'm different from all the Reuters photographers who try to capture this from the army truck and capture it in one picture. So I made this 81 picture collage, and I sent it to NRC Next, and then NRC Handelsblad hijacked the picture. They took it from Next because that Monday they were publishing their first tabloid ever in a tablet format, and wanted to run this picture on 2 pages. So I was extremely happy that they did that. So, in fact, I was like satisfied that my little plan worked. I kind of used my brain to do something differently, and it worked. Later on, the pictures were published as a portfolio in Foam magazine, so it got a different form. That was a 16 pages portfolio. And I didn't mind because, you know, do with the pictures whatever you want. You know, it's a sequence, in fact. And much later, since I always wanted to make the movie, I talked to my agency with Panos Pictures, and I talked with Anna Stevens, which is the multimedia producer, and we tried to make something different, not just a slideshow, but we wanted to make a really cool movie, which was we decided to get the news events, you know, leave that behind, you know, not talk about migrant workers crossing the border, but using these people, and when you see the movie, you know what I mean, as a metaphor for people who are on the run. And since the people in the movie, I don't personalize them, you don't see them in their face, so you don't really meet them. They can become statistics, in fact. So then we decided to make a small movie with numbers, like how many people pass by in a certain time, and in fact expand that to all the refugees and all the IDPs in the world. So we had a lot of contact on the edit, what to use, what not to use, which worked and which didn't work, because it's a really thin line. You know, I didn't want to make a video clip or something too shallow, too easy. We had difficulties with finding the music with it, because we had a really like kind of hip, yeah, like trance, techno music with it, but it was not good, didn't work. It went really well in the rhythm of the music, but it didn't catch you. So what I did was I went to people who make TV commercials, and they sent me to a recording studio, and with them we composed music, and we integrated the music which I recorded. So then finally the movie was finalized. It was done after raw edits and edits and edits and edits. And then we put it online. And 1.5 days later, the New York Times picked it up. It was on the blog of the Wall Street Journal. It went everywhere. It was like a viral. And so that's what we wanted to do. That's what we wanted to achieve. We embedded the movie for free, so everybody could download it. And so people did, and put it on their blogs and stuff, because we wanted to show this movie to as many people as possible. And that's, I think we succeeded. We were really, really successful. So that's it. I think we can run the movie, and thank you.
Yes, thank you. Peter. Ronald.
Is it working? I guess it is, yes.
Ronald, maybe you can say a few words about, there were, I think, something like 35 people who sent in production.
That's true. We watched 35 projects, and in the end we nominated 3, as we all know.
Why? Why did you choose for Chris de Bode?
Yeah, no, it's you told me to be short, so I will. But it's very easy, in fact, because Chris is telling, as we saw, a very huge and important story in a very easy and subtle way. That's very important for us, for the jury. Also, of course, the Canon Prize is meant for photographers who are working in a new way, who are looking for new stages and places to publish the photos. As Chris told, it was published in NRC Handelsblad, but the film went around the world and is still going on. And for us, this was very important because one thing, he's telling the story with his pictures, but it's seen by a lot of people in different places, not only by the people who read newspapers. And on the other hand, which we also liked a lot, of course, is that the picture still is the main message. So the handwriting of the photographer is still very visible. And that's, of course, what we really liked a lot.
Thank you. Peter, have you something to add to this?
Just,
Thank you. Try that again. Great. As Chris said, it went viral almost as soon as it came out, and we certainly shared it on our blog as soon as we saw it. And I think it takes an enormous amount of confidence to choose such a narrow physical setting and make such a broad point from that. And I think it succeeds extraordinarily well in doing that. A very thoughtful use of visuals to keep the audience in play right to the end of the piece. I had a very brief conversation with Chris earlier about music as well. I think that's very well judged, combining a sort of sense of urgency, but actually with a relaxed pace that seems to me to characterize the kind of ceaseless nature of the subject matter, this endless tide of humanity. So really a fantastic piece, and congratulations.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. Then the stage is to Elfie Nieuwkictian, who together with Alice van Gelder made Afrikaner Blood.
Hello, it works. First of all, thanks for having me here, and I'm very happy to be here and that I'm able to show this multimedia piece. Alice could not be here, she lives in South Africa, so for her it's quite a trip to come to Holland to talk about the multimedia. She's in Rwanda at the moment, working on another story. I'm actually not going to talk about the making of the project, because I only have 2 minutes to talk, so I'm going to be very quick. That's because my movie is 8 minutes long. It's a little bit longer than Chris's. So I'm only going to say why I started this and why I got into multimedia. Last year, right around the same time, I had a multimedia workshop, and it was by Mediastorm, another multimedia production company. I think some of you were also there. There was first a workshop on the same day, on the Zilveren Camera day, and then the day after, Canon organized a workshop. And I was at that workshop thinking, hey, this is very nice. I would love to include sound and video into my photography, because for now, or ever since Alice and I have been working together, which is about 4 years now, we've been publishing our reportage stories in newspapers and in magazines, but which is of course very nice, but after the newspaper is, you're done reading it, you throw it away the day after. So we wanted something that would last, something that you could watch back on the internet, something that you could share with a lot of people, that would go viral, that people could share with each other. And that's why we made this multimedia. And when I was at this Mediastorm workshop, they told us everything. They told us how to make a multimedia, but also how to, or what equipment to use. And I didn't know anything about multimedia. So it was very nice. They gave us a list on what equipment to use. And that same day I ordered everything and I bought everything I needed to make this. And a couple of weeks later, I went over to South Africa, and Alice and I talked it through, and we were talking about, okay, let's not just make a story for a magazine, but also this time for the internet, and let's try to make this multimedia. But yeah, she had worked with audio before because she works as a radio journalist, but I had only taken pictures before. And now we would try to mix it and do it both. And we did, and we managed to make this project. Luckily, we found a big help in Metropolis Film, which is a production company. And we gave all our pictures and the videos, and we sat down together for 2 weeks to do the edit. And this is what it looks like now. That's it.
Ek hou van Suid-Afrika, ek hou van ons ruimtes. As 'n mens hier buite gaan staan, dan kan jy tot op die horison omtrent kyk. En jy sien net vlaktes en dit is mooi. En jy kry seker nie in die wêreld soveel verskillende natuurskone soos wat jy in Suid-Afrika kry.
Beweeg, man, beweeg! Kom van die tasse aan. Met wat kom Jackie daar op jou trap? Kom, kry lewe! Beweeg, man, beweeg! Ons nie al aan tyd nie. Ek is moeg, we gaan slaap, né? Kom. Kyk nou, lyk maar as môre. Hoe slaap ek, né? Hè? Ek sê hulle moet kyk nou. Beweeg, man, beweeg! Naam op, niks. Right. Jy begin. Kry my kids. Beweeg!
Ek het net deelgeneem om my familie soos my familie te probeer beskerm en te leer waaroor gaan dit om so 'n tipe persoon te wees, om 'n regte man te word, nie meer die sissie nie.
Ons dra die uniform van die ou Suid-Afrikaanse weermag wat die breinklere was. Ons het ook een van die uniforms gekry waar daar 'n gat deur die uniform geskiet was en waar daar bloedvlekke op die uniform was. Laat daar geen twyfel wees nie. Behalwe vir die Aborigines in Australië, is die swartes van Afrika die mees onderontwikkelde barbaarse spesies van die menslike ras op hierdie aarde.
Alfa! Alfa, vallen!
I don't like the racism because people tend to get angry at one another and they maybe eat one another.
Ek glo Suid-Afrika is 'n reënboognasie, ja, want as dit beteken dat daar is verskillende groepe, mense of volke, etniese groepe in een land. Kyk, ons het basies Khoisas, Zulus, Wendas, dan het ons Indiërs.
Nee, ek hou maar eerder vas. Nee, hy moet breek nie.
Dit vat 'n les van 'n uur en ek draai sy kop en ek swaai hom. Dan weet hy is nie meer deel van die reënboognasie nie. Hy is deel van 'n nasie, 'n ander nasie wat 'n baie trotse geskiedenis het.
Hy het genoeg voorsiening gemaak sodat
Ons is Afrikaners. Ons is 'n volk in eie reg. Soveel disrespek het ons vir hierdie ding.
Wel en al Jooste het 'n baie sweet spot ergens in sy hart waar hy omgee vir sy troepe.
Nou weet jy hoe lekker trappe meisies.
Ek voel dat ek die oupa figuur is Of die vaderfiguur is ten opsigte van hierdie seuns. Nee, is dit nie. Bobbe Jan klim die berg om die boere te vererg. Dis 'n manier om 'n mens te terg. Wat is die grootste verskil tussen jou en 'n swart man? Die cortex. Onthou die woord, die cortex. Hy kan nie daai beplanning doen nie. Nie omdat hy 'n swart vel het nie omdat hy 'n plat neus het nie omdat hy dik lippe het nie, omdat sy cortex 120 gram ligter weeg as jou cortex.
As ek skree bravo is bravo op, okay? Ons sê kolonel.
Ja, ons lei hulle speel op. Maar terselfdertyd terwyl hulle speel is ons besig om hulle op te lei vir 'n oorlogssituasie. 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. Wie is my vyand in Suid-Afrika? Dat ek tot so 'n mate my huis moet en soos 'n fort moet beveilig? Wie bedreig my tot so 'n mate dat ek heeltyd moet uitkyk vir hijacking? Wie moor, roof en verkrag? Wie is hierdie wesens? Wie dink julle is dit? Dis swart mense.
Toe ek op die grond was, ek het dit hard gevoel, dis sleg, jy wil nie dit doen nie, dis moeilik, dis fisies seer kry, en dis, kyk hoe lyk my hande, ek meen, dis geestelik seer kry, dis, jy moet net jouself bewys en vir hulle sê, ja, maar ek kan, en ek gaan, want ek wil.
Hou daai arm styf. Daar's hy, dit lyk beter.
My arm seer. Ek kan nie meer doen wat ons nou doen nie. Ek kan nie meer. Ek weet ek gaan my teleurstel, maar ek kan nie.
Ja, hierdie kamp bevorder rasisme, maar nie slegte rasisme nie.
I thought of a rainbow nation, but there is nothing like that in South Africa.
Ja, ek voel nou definitief meer soos 'n Afrikaner. Ek voel daar vloei Afrikaner bloed in my. Ek wil nie Suid-Afrikaans wees nie. Ek wil nie met hierdie reënboognasie geassosieer word nie, want dit is nie hoe dit moet wees nie en dis nie hoe dit gaan wees nie.
Van ons land Suid-Afrika, ons land.
As ek lief is vir my eie volk, as ek lief is vir my eie taal, as ek lief is vir my eie kultuur, as ek lief is vir my eie ras, en jy sê vir my, dan is ek 'n rasis, ja, dan is ek 'n rasis. En ek is nie skaam om te sê ek is 'n rasis nie, want as in hierdie land in Suid-Afrika, is daar een van twee dinge moet jy moet wees, of jy's blind, of jy's 'n rasis.
Ons sal lewe, ons sal sterwe, ons vir jou Suid-Afrika.
Ronald, fotografie en film komen hier wel dicht bij elkaar in de buurt.
Oh yes, photography and film.
Yes, photography
are combined very well. Yes, because in general, the jury we discussed a lot a few weeks ago, and for us it was very hard to find a definition for the nominations and also even for the Canon Prize, because it's about innovation and it's about multimedia, which is a very big word, but in fact we not know yet very well what it means. So we had a lot of people also who sent in projects like a website with photos, or people who publish beautiful books, but with one or two films on YouTube. Is that multimedia? And that's we don't think that's what we're looking for. So, and this, of course, this film is also like Chris' film, is a great example of combining different ways of telling a story. And what we liked is, of course, a very strong and beautiful shot and edited documentary. But again, like in Chris' film, the photos, the pictures are playing a big role. So it's still a photo project, and that's what we're looking for. And we're really surprised by the story, and of course you cannot escape from it. And that's also very good when it works that way.
Yes, thank you. I guess, Peter, you agree that this is an example of how new media get photography further?
Absolutely, and I think you can feel the difference in audience effect between the video and the still photography. And I think that the balance that you achieved between video and photography is very powerful and very skillfully done. I mean, of course, there's the story itself. It's a story as old as the hills, but very contemporary and very modern. For me, it had echoes of Lord of the Flies or Full Metal Jacket. So it has all those resonances, which I found very powerful. And the sort of journey we see from innocence to, perversion of views that they end up with, I think that really is powerful. I think it's a really important film. Really, congratulations.
Peter, thank you very much. Okay, we're going on with the third and last nominee in a few seconds. Sorry, I'm not asking you for any questions or reactions from the audience. That is because we have to hurry a little bit. At 3 o'clock, the live streaming has to be cut off, so their installation can go to the award ceremony. But don't worry, from 3 o'clock we still have, let's say, 30 minutes or so for you to pose questions to either the nominees or Peter Rudge. So now may I invite Jeroen Torkens to the stage.
Hello, hello everybody. I would like to tell you something about my nominated project Nomad, which is a search for the last living nomads on the Northern Hemisphere. The project consists of 3 parts. The book Nomad, on which I worked for the last 11 years. 2 exhibitions and a multimedia piece. And I'm going to focus my story now on the multimedia piece. In 2009 I was doing research for a trip to East Greenland together with journalist Petra Schouwman. And I contacted 2 Dutch museums with which I had worked before, the Museum in The Hague and the Museum Volkenkunde in Leiden. And Cunera Buys, who was the conservator of Museum Volkenkunde, she showed me really amazing pictures of a Dutch anthropologist, Gertie Noter, who did research in Greenland in the 1960s until the 1980s. And we decided that it was such great pictures that we would take a selection of 70 of these pictures with us to the people in East Greenland to interview the people about these old pictures and get the stories behind these pictures. So in 2009, in August, together with Petra, I went to East Greenland, and we went to the village of Tirida, which is the village where Gertie Noter lived with his family for 2 years. And we tried to contact the people through our guide, Julius, which wasn't that difficult because the village has only 140 people who live there, so quite small. When we got in contact with these people, we showed these 70s old pictures. I think you will see them here. And we laid them on the table and asked them to choose 1 or 2 of these images and tell a story about it, which I was going to film and Petra was going to interview or do the sound. While filming, we wouldn't interrupt them. They could just tell their own story. And in the filming, I really tried to stay close to my profession as a photographer. So I filmed it from a tripod as still images, sort of as moving pictures. And I didn't move the camera also, so it really looked to me as if I was taking a picture. Well, the stories were, we couldn't understand anything of it because they spoke in their own East Greenlandic language. Even people in West Greenland don't understand what people in the East Greenland are telling. So when we came back, I had about 20 hours of film and 20 hours of sound. And I had a meeting with the 2 museums, the Museum and the Museum Volkenkunde in Leiden. And we decided that it was such great material that we're going to make an exhibition out of it. So it was going to be a permanent exhibition which is on show in the museum next to this museum, and also a traveling exhibition which was also going to travel to Denmark and Greenland. But first we needed the translations. So I made a rough edit of 2 hours and we sent it to Greenland, and then we waited. And we waited a bit longer, and about a year later, the translation arrived. Thank God it was translated. And I could start to edit it. In the meantime, I was working together with Diederik Veerman, who is the conservator and curator of the museum in The Hague. And we talked about what kind of an exhibition it was going to be. And it was going to be part of a bigger project which is called Roots to Share, which is sort of a digital heritage forum on which also people from Greenland can continue to build. It's a website and people can add captions to the pictures. I'm now going to show you 3 of the interviews I made. In total it's 16 interviews, and they are all on show in the museum, which is a permanent exhibition. So I would like to invite you later to go and watch this exhibition. Thank you.
Uttumikki tiitakiraami qaanitchat qaanitchat kommuni aqurituun qaanitchat ikertaayaqarti sulippiuakka kiisati aamma uttumi qalipaasinnaanermut piima chuulikka iqaatitsiitsavakka alaqqinga alaqarpu umeerinna taava kuisikkami laatsimi alaqarpu taava taattuma erneernaarpaa uanga aalaaga ottu erneernaarpaa alaalaga mikkili taava mikkili erniivaaga aalaaga aliittumu ottu isimmaattakkat ingiit taanna nakkiuinga uqaliusaakkaayuo isimmaqittali aamma titsiartinnaaluni siwakai maqaasiilarpakka taamaatte nakkiuimma alaalaala aalaarma aingikkattaqami qilernami uqalittuasaartartimaraamma qilernani pilartimavaa iminna peeritsimaleerima tamakkiwat iqqaalarniaasi uqaaliilarniaasi taava tammatsannit nakkiuimma uqaaser taanna pikiliutsumayaami eeqalinnu annittarpakka uqaliusaaleeraarama nakkiuinga ilingilangitsoorne aertarpaga tusarnaariaatti uttumikki maqaasinarti
Tämä toqalituan sauli.
Kisetorpu.
Tanna atse. Atsepitu oqaltua saan sauli ta oqaltua naamatsilaarpa attegilikimaata.
Nono tatsossivi. Teeterilaarmuigaartimalartita. Iuttiarmat. Iuttartangaartu oqaltua oqarpuut. Ipai tuodeoqatingiippuut kungippingassunguujarpala mitaaritta taakisiloqarpuut qanisertila mitaatsulu atsukkartutsanertuu peqqingi kaamilinnaalisertutsanertuu taaqarpuut ilu peqqingi kaayularneranni tamattavangi peqqikkaayuuttula kungisut Sarsuttura idau milaartut тигиагаатни пеккигиккаалеранни таалеериагаалу таисегалилараппуиттини уаги аттилаарниттинни илау пеккигиккаалераннатторнссааттинни сорту мааюннарти
Uttua arappakannuannaartua aliastua kisia qirnaka tamarmi uinga piniartuunerani tawa angitspartawa qutnugiqartua atalapputoqu kisianaanappu marteraqialerma toqippu tawa uai qalangiligitsilat siamaattula tawa angitspartaattua iitbinukuiqartiva qalangilikappingasin uanganaanartuina taappilerpaanga tawanga taakua qirnartuina taamina pilertugutsu tatangaannalelertini alilertugunnaatiinarta taaminartoqunartiilerpa angitspartaattuni tawa peqqitsaanginaanniilatsama qirnaati amertanermani taamin punarani iuti angeqarnianaalu tayuti kiernakaanakaayummi alilertarpa ertoqunakaayummi ilaanni taamaatin taakuertaqiiarmala pittuartilaatula taakuaningaanti inuugu kisitamaanniilatsa uitin tamaa niiniarti kaatangaloorpu saikuana niiniarti tama tattapparngula taatuumuqaasia asannikaaittuakayuungitni aqaloortaanuppilarpa ertumasunguartiaami inuustungortun tamaama pilaqartalertini tartaani angalaaquutalertini sigikkunnakkartini toqqiarpa tawa nuartspaartu taaminati attiingaati angililuaannarti itiarteruppu itiarteruyaata aama aversortiaami ukiatsaarnerani anitattorpiilitini aama toqoqippu inersi tapernaginnaartili toqqippu anitatto aataaqisertuna anitattorpeeqertertunu kuunaatin taatoqqiarma taawagi nukaangati aataannukaa qanikaami soorna ututtiimayaataatoqu taawagi taakiitsaangu
Yeah, of course, like I said before, we were looking for projects which are telling stories in several ways. Now, this is, of course, a very beautiful example of telling a story in different ways. There is, of course, a beautiful book which was published already, and then there is this exhibition, as you know now, permanent, and there is also a great website in which brings a lot of work which Jeroen made together. So here you see this is a project where the different ways of telling also make each stage stronger. The book changes when you see the website and all the way around. So that's really great. That works very well. And of course we were also as a jury very surprised and impressed by the fact that this was a project which Jeroen is working on for many years. And as we know, we all live now in a time we're always in a rush and in a hurry, and so it's great to see such a rich project with so much information and great stories.
Yes. What I remember is that the jury thought this web shop, this
website, web shop.
Later on the web shop.
The merchandising is open now. No.
Usually, the website is used to here it comes to become a shop window.
Yes.
But this website is much more than that.
Much more than that. No, that's what I said after the former project. A lot of projects. It was more in a commercial for the book or something like that. But this is a complete different way of telling a story. The site at itself is also an incredible piece of work, because when you go around there, you can wander around and you can find all these stories, all these beautiful pictures, all this information about the people we don't know. So that's the great part of this project. It's combining the different things and it makes it stronger. So that's what we really liked a lot.
Well, thank you
to put it mildly.
Peter.
Thanks very much. Just to say a few words about the project. I mean, the scale and the level of commitment that's gone into it is really, really staggering. I did myself spend a couple of months in Greenland about 20 years ago, and it's without doubt the most beautiful place I've ever been. And the photos in the project really do it justice, and I don't think there's any higher compliment I can pay than that. And I lost quite a lot of time on the website looking around it. Time flew, and that's another great compliment. And I'll certainly be back as soon as more of the films are subtitled in English. Either that or I'll have to learn Dutch, but I suspect subtitling might be a bit easier. Congratulations, it's really great.
Peter, thank you very much. On the Facebook page of Zilveren Camera, we had a poll, so visitors could vote which of the three nominated projects they thought was best. I can give you that, but I cannot assure you that this will be the same verdict as the jury gave. But if I remember correct, the general public thought Elvi's film was the best, and I think Chris's was second and Jeroen third. But as I said, there's no reason to believe that this will be the same verdict the jury has given. Let's keep it up until 5 o'clock, what happens. In the meantime, we have a speaker, Peter Rudge. He works for Duckrabbit. Duckrabbit is probably one of the 4 or 5 producers worldwide of multimedia based on photography. They were quite strong on making productions with still photography, probably more than others. But I think they're putting some video in their productions now as well. And I think Peter will tell us about why they're doing that and a lot more. So please give an applause for Peter Rudge.
Thanks very much. Is that, you hearing that? Yes, good. Thank you. It's a real honour to be asked to come and speak to you today. I'm going to hide a little bit behind the lectern. I hope you don't mind. I'm Peter. I'm the operations director for Duckrabbit, and what that means really is that I'm responsible for the day-to-day running of the company. Let me show you what a Duckrabbit is. This is a Duckrabbit. Now, some of you should be seeing a duck. Some of you should be seeing a rabbit. And I'm hoping as we look just a little bit longer, you can make yourself see both a duck and a rabbit. And are you getting there? How are we doing? We're doing all right. Okay, good. It's audience participation. In theory, according to the latest research, the faster that you can make yourself see both the duck and the rabbit, the more creatively active your brain is. And if anyone is seeing something that is neither a duck nor a rabbit, then email me, because you're probably a creative genius or something, and we need to be in touch. For us, though, Duckrabbit, calling the company Duckrabbit, is about playing with ideas of ambiguity and contradiction in the work that we produce. And I've been given the opportunity here to talk a little bit about Duckrabbit, our company, our work, our approach to storytelling, and I hope add maybe a few thoughts about where the business might go, the industry might go in the future. So as a company, we produce films, photography, radio, and we also spend a lot of time training people in the skills that they need to produce multimedia themselves. I think last year we trained over 200 photographers, journalists, communications specialists in the skills they need to get started in multimedia. We also run a blog, and we spend a lot of time posting about the things that we're interested in. Journalism, photography, filmmaking, international development, and for those of you who do follow, we like to do a bit of funk music on a Friday, so really whatever people want. Duckrabbit was started in late 2008 by Benjamin Chesterton, whose background was in radio production for the BBC, and by David White, who was and is a photojournalist. But the initial idea to start putting high-quality still photography together with documentary audio was really in response to a problem. During the post-election violence in 2007-2008, Benjamin was working in Kenya with radio and print journalists, and he was looking for ways to persuade them to... That's more like Kenya violence. He was looking for ways to persuade them to get out into the Rift Valley, to the camps full of displaced people, and talk to them, rather than just talking to politicians and diplomats and officials in Nairobi. So he put together some audio with some photography taken at that time by the Japanese photojournalist Yasuyoshi Chiba, and this is one of Chiba's shots from that period, with a very simple piece of software called Sound Slides, which many of you may well be familiar with. And the result proved incredibly effective at getting people out of Nairobi and into the Rift Valley to talk to the people in those camps. And these films, which Benjamin started to call photo films, seemed to be just a very natural fit between the audio documentary that he was used to in the BBC style and still photography, photojournalism. Both shared a certain intimacy of purpose, and they lacked the need for large crews or significant amounts of equipment. My own background is rather different. I spent 12 years in the British diplomatic service before joining Duckrabbit, but I would say that Benjamin and David's belief in the power of human stories at the sharp end of international affairs is something that resonates and resonates very, very strongly with me. I want to tell you just a story from my period as a diplomat, something that made a very big impact on me. In 2006-2007, I was posted in Ethiopia, and my responsibility was to provide political briefings to London about the Horn of Africa generally. Right at the end of 2006, Ethiopian forces invaded Somalia in response to the perceived threat from the rise of the United Islamic Courts movement. And in January of 2007, I got a phone call to my office asking me whether I wanted to come down and talk to somebody who'd just come into the embassy, a British Somali man who until very recently had been in the Al-Shabaab. Now, many of you may know that the Al-Shabaab is an Islamist militia, Al-Qaeda aligned, and it was something that Ethiopia had invaded Somalia in response to, at least in part. Now, I was pretty excited by the opportunity to meet an Islamist militiaman. It was a chance to meet the enemy, which I didn't, to be honest with you, get very often. So I walked down to the consulate, and when I got there, I was confronted by a boy. He certainly didn't look any older than 16 or 17. He was very thin. He was pretty ragged, looking pretty dirty. I introduced myself, and he fixed me with a steely glare, and he said, "Bloody hell, mate, you would not believe the month I have had." Actually, he used slightly stronger language than that, but I feel a little bit uncomfortable because I don't know you well enough yet to start swearing. His name was Abdi. His parents were first-generation Somali immigrants to the UK. He'd been born in London, raised in London. At the age of 15, not uncommonly, he'd fallen in with a pretty rough crowd of kids and had started to follow a path, a pretty well-trodden path, towards gang membership, petty criminality. So some skirmishes with other London gangs and a bit of light drug use. The discovery by his father of his marijuana stash had led to a bit of a family confrontation. And a week later, he was on a flight to Mogadishu with his father. Now, as far as Abdi was concerned, they were going to spend a couple of weeks with his father's brother, still living there in Mogadishu. But after a few days, his father didn't appear for breakfast. And his uncle told him that his father had decided that what Abdi needed was to reconnect with his roots and to learn some discipline in the Somali style and get away from his troublesome London friends. His uncle sat him down and warned him straight away, don't go out in Mogadishu on your own. Wait till you know the place a bit better. It doesn't have to be dangerous, but you should get to know it first. Now, in the style of a London teenager, Abdi immediately ignored that advice. And 3 days later, on an unsupervised excursion on the streets of Mogadishu, he was kidnapped by a Shabab recruiting party. So he ends up some days afterwards in a Shabab training camp just outside Baidoa. Pretty harsh discipline. And 3 weeks later, he knows how to use an AK-47. But his training period is interrupted by the invasion of Ethiopian forces. So Shabab tactics, it would be worth noting, were pretty basic and unsuccessful during those first days of that fight. And they tended to consist of full frontal charges by the Shabab on Ethiopian positions and convoys, usually without the presence of senior leadership, who it turned out, and perhaps predictably, were much keener on martyrdom for the troops than they were for themselves. So Abdi's first experience of warfare was very brief. Forced forward in a charge against an Ethiopian convoy, in his words, everybody was dead in the first few minutes. So Abdi, sensibly enough, played dead himself and hid amongst the bodies of his comrades until nightfall, when he crept away under cover of darkness. Now, it took him about a week of walking and hitchhiking to get north into Somaliland, across the border into Ethiopia, and finally to the British Embassy and to my office. Well, we found a way to get him home. We contacted his family and made sure he got home. And I have to admit, to this day, I am still curious to know how that conversation with his father went when he got home. Now, I wrote up Abdi's story, and I was deeply dissatisfied with it, really, because it was impossible to convey the power of it without the audience being able to hear the sound of Abdi's East London accent, see and hear the very British vocal and physical mannerisms, and see the contrast of that with his appearance, which was of a young, ragged, Shababi militiaman. And I felt that I had learnt, in some ways, much more about the war, the region, and why it actually mattered to the UK from that hour with Abdi than I did from the many diplomatic exchanges that followed. I want to come back to that story a little bit later. But firstly, maybe I could show you a piece of storytelling that Duckrabbit made for the BBC at the beginning of last year. Maybe we could get the lights down a little bit. All right, here we go.
It was everything, you just name it. Kidnapping people, shelling civilian quarters, bombs, torturing, electrical shocks, killing in the streets or killing in prisons or things like that, everything. And I did not think that what I was doing was bad. A period that I think that if I had died then, I would have gone directly to hell.
When they took my boys, there was an Israeli invasion. The refugee camp was being bombed. There were more than 200 militants, tanks, trucks, soldiers, Israeli army, phalangists, and the South Lebanon army. They were all there. They came in the house and asked, "What's your religion?" Palestinian. Then a militant told my children one by one to stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up. Then they took my 4 children. They put them in the truck. They started going around, getting 2 from here and 2, 3, 4, 5 from there, until they had filled the 2 trucks with men. They took one of my sons before he was dressed. He was in his pajamas, so I took his shirt. The militant got on the truck and kicked my son and hit him on his mouth. He put up his hand to protect himself. The militant kicked him again and hit him in his stomach. He pushed him off the truck and they started kicking him and beating him.
If some Christians were kidnapped by the Muslim side, immediately the same day, the same amount, more or less, was kidnapped, and they waited to make an exchange. And if these were killed, by reaction, the others were killed. Those who had been kidnapped.
If I only knew that my sons were going and I would not see them again, what would my life be for? I would have thrown myself under the wheels of the truck that took my sons. I would have let the trucks drive over me and kill me and not survive them. What do I want with my life after my sons?
So you were behind some executions?
Yes, but it was individual executions.
Were the bodies sent to their parents?
Never. The parents didn't even know maybe that he was in our custody. No, the parents never knew, I think.
What happened to the bodies?
The whole Lebanese soil is planted with mass graves. So that's the case, I think. I know about one mass grave only. The others, I don't know. I really don't know.
And what about the mothers?
I don't have an answer. I'm sorry, I don't have an answer.
I want my sons, even if it's one bone from them. I want it back, to put it in a frame and keep it here with me. A shoe from my sons, from one of them. I want it for me. I want them even if they're only remains. They are my sons. And if they're not alive, I want to know why they were killed. Starting on the 17th of September 1982, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday. In those 4 days, they took away 2,111 men and boys. No one came back. It's enough.
Thank you. Thank you. We made this film together with a full-length radio documentary, and the radio documentary was broadcast on the BBC World Service, whilst the film was broadcast on the World Service website. It now lives on the BBC News website. But I think there's an interesting convergence of radio with visual media at work here, and I think we're going to be seeing much more of that, because as more and more people use the internet to listen to radio, and I think in the UK the figures were going up 15% each quarter, people using the internet devices, so tablets, smartphones, laptops, to listen to the radio. So I think there's going to be an increasing market for radio work to be accompanied by visual media of some sort, and I know the BBC are looking at this quite strongly now. The crew for this film, from our perspective, consisted of Dalia Kamisi, a Beirut-born photographer, and Duckrabbit's Benjamin Chesterton. And we like to work with very small crews because we strongly believe that this is a good way to capture intimate and authentic material. And in terms of the media we used, I mean, the piece does use video, as you saw, but quite sparingly, and we think with something of a photographic aesthetic. We're often asked by clients why it is that we focus so strongly on still photography for our visual medium, why we call them photo films. And our answer is that the audiences engage with still photography in a very different way than they engage with video. The audience's eye has to explore the image to extract the meaning from it in a very active way, just as your eyes had to explore the Duckrabbit image to extract the contradiction and ambiguity inherent in the image. And that requires an engagement of your cognitive process, your imagination, in a way that I think video often doesn't demand. And I know for myself that my own memory works in still photography, in still images. My memory is built on snapshots of my past. And I think that because memory seems to work in still imagery, conversely, that makes still photography much more memorable. I hope that's kind of clear. We also tell our clients that we use still photography a lot because audiences really like it. And the data that we can collect from our productions and the data that other people release about viewing figures for their productions is that the combination of still imagery and documentary audio attracts large volumes of audience online. A photo film featured on the BBC front page of their news website could very quickly attract up to 500,000 views. So at Duckrabbit, what we all share, I think, is a real respect for the power of the still image. And I think you hear more and more people predicting or theorising on the death of photojournalism and photography. And we feel that there's never been more opportunities for its use. And I want to say a little bit more about that later. A large segment of our work at the moment is in our production work, that is in the charity, development and humanitarian sectors. And I wanted to show you a piece that we made last year for a Médecins Sans Frontières campaign that was released just in the second half of 2011. So if we could go for the lights again, I'll show you this film.
Sababu nilianza luma tulikuwa huko msoko ile siku ya kwanza. Ndio nikamuuliza sasa unaanza luma mwili kipande ya saa 8. Tukaenda ikenea saa kenda usiku. Wakeluma sana wakinitosha mwili wakiniweka kule kudispa. Mimi nilikuwa na woga, nilikuwa nasema basi naenda kufa.
It's going to take us about an hour to get there in the car, I think. The road isn't so good, so we're going to take 2 vehicles in case we have any problems. If we get stuck in the mud, we always have another vehicle which can pull us out. We've just arrived in the Mabitsi Santa de Santi. We're with a young mum, it's her first baby. There's a lot of swelling on the baby's head now. We're just putting her in the back of the car, making her comfortable on a mattress.
Tulifika ule mzungu wa mama alikuwa naikala mugari. Ninalalamika na muuliza se watembeze gari polepole.
Tembeze polepole na kufa. Roads aren't good, and if you're a woman in labour, already in pain, already exhausted, this journey must be torture.
Sasa nilikuwa nalala nasikia natatapika.
So I'm in the delivery room. There's a very large swelling on the baby's head now. The baby's been there a very long time.
Sasa walinipima wakiniuliza sasa wanaenda nisaidie. Ndio wakaenda nisaidia kuniopera na nyo nikapata mtoto. Mimi sikuwaza kitu, sikuhuzunika, nilihuzunika tu. Sasa walisema basi wananibeba. Sikuhuzunika sana jole mama mzungu. alikuwa ananifariji asema nenda nisaidia nyo ndapata mtoto. Na ndio vile tu alikuwa ananisemesha na mimi tena sikuwazia vya operation. Nikafurahi tu.
The mother's just received the spinal anaesthetic. It's a Tuesday night, 6 o'clock, and we're just about to start the cesarean. The large perception is that the majority of people who die in the Congo is because of war, it's because of conflict. Access to healthcare, especially for the women, but also for the children under 5, is definitely the biggest killer. That's why MSF is so important here, because we take the ambulances to some of these remote places, we bring the women here, and we can ensure they get really good quality care.
Ningekufa jua kule tu walikuwa natia tumaini asenda zala mzuri. Juu mtoto hangetoka kichwa ilikuwa kabambi.
I was asking her if she thinks it's going to be a boy or a girl, and she says she doesn't mind, she just is happy to have a healthy baby. I said in 2 minutes she's going to be a mum. So it's a baby girl. She's come out crying, she's pink, she's perfect.
MSF wanatufanyia kazi ya mzuri sana. Juu kusema kama haviko huku, kama watu wa mingi vyo nakufa, na kama tuko nateseka. Ninapenda akomale, kisha ukomala ni mtio masomo kisha akwe munganga. Kisha aponeshe wengine jinsi waliniponesha.
I mean, first of all, I think this does demonstrate a moment where video provokes a response that still photography would struggle to match. I mean, where we see that MSF ambulance bouncing through the mud and with Zawadi in labour in the back. I mean, I've seen this film many times and I still feel it. So, you know, video can have an effect that still photography can't match. Now, our team spent a pretty inspiring 10 days in the Congo with the MSF team there. Again, a very small crew, 1 audio producer, 1 photojournalist, plus a member of the MSF communications team to help us collect some of the audio interviews. And of those 10 days, 4 consisted of travelling to and from Masisi to get to the location. So despite the very short timescale, we were able to collect enough material for 4 films like this, one of which we produced in 3D, actually, and I'd love to be able to show you the 3D effect. It is truly amazing, but it would have taken a lot of glasses, so I'm afraid I don't have the resources to do that. But MSF did a pretty fantastic 3D exhibition in central London and a premiere, which I'm told worked pretty well for them. But we also had enough material for video pre-roll adverts, radio adverts, and animation, and of course the still photography for their print and online. And what it seems to me on the business side is just a very good example of how working in this very lean, stripped-down way, small crew working very light and fast in an intimate and authentic journalistic style can produce a hugely versatile stock of material that can be fashioned and cut in many different ways according to the client's needs and requirements. And I guarantee you that from my experience of pitching for new business with Duckrabbit, that people start to sit up and pay attention when you explain this to them. Because I can tell you that this is not the message that they're getting from more established TV production houses and advertising agencies. I think the theme that runs through all of our work, whether it's with still photography, video, or animation even, is about storytelling. And I wanted to say a few words about what we think this means. Some scientists talk about storytelling in human groups as a key evolutionary tool. By sharing stories about our state of being, we teach each other lessons, learn about things that make us more successful as a group or indeed individually. Even if you don't buy the evolutionary argument, I don't think you'd be able to deny that storytelling narratives have shaped the world, politics, civilizations, and culture. from Judeo-Christian stories to the sort of stories that drove British industrial imperialism in the 19th century to Al-Qaeda's single narrative. For good or for ill, people who can tell influential stories and find a wide audience are very powerful. And I think that well-constructed stories act as a Trojan horse message delivery system, imparting a message under the radar. I think Abdi's story of escape from the Shabab made me think far more deeply about the sort of people that play out international affairs at the sharp end. For me, it was a lesson in human context, something very easy for a diplomat to forget. But masquerading as a boy's own adventure story, something in the mould of Rudyard Kipling or Arthur Conan Doyle, so the sort of books that I grew up reading. I guess in a far more practical way, it taught me that running straight at machine guns is a really bad idea, but possibly I could have worked that out for myself. For me, the Lebanon film, The Missing, the Trojan horse message is about regret. And I think the moment around which the film turns is the point at which he says that he has nothing to say to the mothers. I think seeing and hearing and indeed feeling empathy for an old man with blood on his hands and hearing that regret is a pretty powerful lesson. And it's the replaying of a universal truth, which is people who commit atrocities are rarely monsters. They're usually people like us. And that's a powerful message to be sending. By attaching this sort of meaning and emotional response to stories, I think we make them extraordinarily memorable. And I honestly don't think I can remember in any detail the meetings I had with other diplomats, officials and politicians during 2006, 2007, but I remember every detail of the story that Abdi told me in his escape from the Shabab. On a practical level, how do we advise our students then to tell effective, powerful stories in photo film production? And just as importantly, how do they find an audience for those stories? Well, one of the first things we flag up is the need to be editorially ruthless. Attention span online is brutally short. Getting people to click and start watching your story is hard, but getting them to finish watching it is really, really hard. So you have to make every second count. You've got to capture the audience's attention in the first 10 seconds, setting up a challenge, contradiction, mystery, question, jeopardy in your opening moments will help you secure and hold that audience. Both in the audio and visual, you need to think very carefully about what is the moment that will convince the viewer to stick with you. I think in the Zawadi film that we just see, we try to achieve that by jumping straight into the action. There's no prologue, there's no introduction, just a dramatic scene of life or death jeopardy. I mean, we look into the girl's eyes and we want to know what happens to her. I think The Missing achieves the hook in a different way, probably more with the audio. The words it begins with, kidnapping people, shelling civilian quarters, bombs, torturing, electric shocks. We want to know what all this is about, right? We want to know who's saying these words. There's a mystery here that we want to stay on and uncover. And I think the quality of the audio is key. There's a hypnotic rhythm to that opening sentence, which I think works very well. And we do talk a lot in training about effective audio recording. Our experience is that our audiences are far more tolerant of poor visuals than they are of poor audio. As soon as the audio is of a low quality, people switch off very, very fast. Development of empathy in the audience is absolutely key, of course. And you need to give some people something to connect with their own lives, something they can recognize, and something that's as universal to the audience's experience as possible. I think Zawadi's story has many of these universal hooks. Childbirth, pain, fear. I think fear particularly, at that moment where she says she thought she was going to die, you can feel that in her voice, and it's absolutely gripping. And of course, her hopes for her daughter are very moving. They play to a universal value that many of us feel about parental care. We also suggest to our students that they might try thinking in a very nuts and bolts way about the productions they make as build their production, build their stage, populate it with actors and props, and have those actors interact with each other and interact with the audience. I mean, in the very simplest way, building the stage. With The Missing, we do it with an opening shot of Beirut, that sort of pulling back and surveying the scene. Props, detail shots. And here again in The Missing, these are the shots that help you fill your visual narrative. They're problem solvers, and they're everyday items. And through the narrative, we imbue these everyday items with meaning and emotion. I think the socks particularly, something about that one. Actors. In very short pieces, I think it's very hard for an audience to build up empathy with more than one or two people in any depth. So you've got to be very sparing in your choice of who you choose to focus on and the events from their life that you choose to show in your films. In the end, it all comes down to editorial choice. And telling intimate stories like this, I think there's such a myriad of possibilities of different ways and different moments that you can show. I think the mark of a master is to choose a few moments but show a lifetime, if that makes sense. I wanted to show you a film. It's not a Duckrabbit production. It's made by an independent filmmaker called Emily McInnes, someone who came along to one of our training sessions. It's a film I like very much. Illustrates a few more points about the possibilities of multimedia and some of the points that we try and get across to our students. It's a very intimate piece. It features just one British man talking about the onset of blindness. And once we've seen it, I want to tell you why I think it's got a lot in common with Steven Spielberg's shark epic, Jaws. So, if we could have the lights.
I can see things, but it's making those things out that I have difficulty with. So technically I'm registered blind, but when you say you're blind to people, they assume that you just see black. But that's seeing something. People that are totally blind don't even see black, they see absolutely nothing. There's nothing there to see. Whereas I actually see things. It's like a badly focused camera.
Wooden floors, walls and window sills, tables and chairs warmed by all of the dust.
I was driving to work and I looked at the motorway sign. I couldn't read it. It seemed blurred. And then at work I thought they were turning the lights down and I kept turning them back up, but it wasn't the light, it was me. You know, I was having trouble with the computer. And that's when I thought, well, I need some new glasses. So I went to the optician, and a week later I was in the hospital. But that year I took sulking and being mardy and depressed. You know, I can't remember a lot of that. All I know is I put a lot of weight on because I was eating everything in sight. Sometimes I wouldn't even get dressed. I'd just sit down in pyjamas, listen to telly, well, try and watch telly, and then get angry that I couldn't make things out. And then my wife would get back from work, and I'd literally days when I'd done nothing. All I'd done was eat, because she'd complain, she'd get in, nothing in the fridge. She'd go shopping, she'd fill everything back up again 2 days later. And I was whinging, oh, look, I'm getting fat, I can't fit in there. You don't know you're depressed, you just think everybody else is having a go at you. One day I realised, well, hang on, I've only lost my eyes. So that's when I came out of it and joined various organisations and allowed people to help me. And now I'm going back up. I've done my scooting along on the bottom and I'm coming back up now. Surprising how quickly you do adapt to a lack of a certain sense. When I'm walking in town, I'll know if there's an alleyway by the sensitivity of light and by the draft or by the sound. And being the size I am, I can detect a food emporium miles away. You know, when I was at the hospital having some treatment, I decided to go to the cafe for a cup of tea, and I didn't know where it is, but I decided I'd find it myself, and I just followed my nose, and I found it. I can't cook anymore with any form of security, because I can't tell if meat's cooked or not. If something needs to be hot or cold, I can do that, because I can stick a digit in it. But any complicated things, like, say, scrambling eggs or something where you've got there's any visual input, then I tend to shy away. When I first went blind, the biggest thing that annoyed me was I couldn't pee standing up. Peeing standing up is part of being a man. I had to say to myself, well, I'm going to have to start sitting down. But my pride wouldn't let me. I still refuse point blank. That will be my final acceptance of my condition. But at the minute, it's just, I've lost too much. When I go to sleep at night, when I close my eyes, because I'm not totally blind, there's some kind of short circuit that means that it's like a firework display. And until it settles down, until I start going to sleep, it's quite difficult to go to sleep, because it's like trying to watch it to see what was happening, because it's unusual. I think, believe it or not, there's fireworks going off in the room. But when you open your eyes, they fade and the fuzziness comes back. England were playing France at rugby. We got a 47-inch telly, and I was kneeling in front of it, and I was screaming away because I thought we were going to score a try. My wife comes in and says, "You're supporting the French." So I had to turn the telly off and leave in disgust.
A squirter which yields 3 points for France.
You know, I do watch telly in my way, because I can see the changes, some of the changes. I can't make people's faces out, but the imagination takes over. The doctor said that all my treatments are to prevent it getting worse. Nothing will ever put it back. But he said that these treatments that take their toll, my eyes are dying, and what they've done is they've stopped them dying as quick, but they will eventually go. There's a lot to be positive about. So out of all the things that could have happened, you know, this is the one they picked, and I'm dealing with it the best way I know.